See, the problem is you can still be stopped by life. You don't have any life of your own. You're not independent at all. Everything that happens to you takes you away from yourself. You can still be stolen by the slightest frown on someone's face, or your heart skips a beat and you worry about your health, or your finances, or by your relationship with another person, or by a thought of the future, or by the past. You have no life of your own at all. You think you have, but what you call your life is a series of emotional charges, of physical sensations, of switches in physical location, different attractions. You call all this your life. And you can tell me what kind of a life it is. There is a way to live 24 hours of the day in which you are not stopped by external influences or attractions or negative things or hurtful things, so-called hurtful things. There is a way to move through, not every day, not every hour, not every minute, but every second in which you are living your own life, in which you are not hypnotized by the exterior world or by your own interior world. And we're going to find out how to do it. Certainly when you get up in the morning, you have to brush your teeth and have breakfast and drive the car to work and work around the house or whatever you do. Certainly every minute is going to have its challenges. It's going to have its decisions to make. It's going to have to make changes in previous plans, maybe unexpected things you didn't at all expect to happen. Some of them you can figure out and some you can't, depending on their psychological level. But even the unexpected things can be handled perfectly. And do you know how? By being totally awake to it. Which means you can't think about it when you get the phone call that changes the plans you had for the day. Something happens where you don't get an advantage, financial or some other way that you expected. If you think about it, with your pseudo-self in mind, hoping to gain an advantage or avoid a disadvantage, if you think about it, you are the prodigal son mentally. You have wandered away from the only solution to every event, which is so simple, but we don't see it yet. The solution being not to think about the event unless it's on the level where it should be thought about, like cooking or driving or whatever, but to see the event without me, without you, in your case, being in the event. Can you possibly conceive a state of mind of your whole being where there is a reaction which is an understanding but not an opposition or an acquisition. Can you imagine yourself responding to every event that comes up throughout the day without you being in it? So there is not you responding and understanding, but simply a response and an understanding, which has nothing to do with you personally at all. If my car breaks down, I do have to think about it. I have a flat tire. I have to think, well, the spare tire is under the back seat. I have to pick up the back seat, get the tire out, put on the spare, and so on. I have to think about it. Can I do it on its own level, which is a mechanical task? Purely mechanical task to change a tire or do whatever else, anything. Without there being tension, a problem involved in it. How did you pass this day today? Think about it for a minute. Think of the small and large challenges you had, some which were purely mental. Not necessarily out there, but we're talking about in here as well as out there. Do you understand that had you understood all these things we're trying to grasp here, that your entire day, therefore your entire world, would have been different? Because that foolish, impulsive, frightened, confused human being would not have been in the situation at all. And when you, or I, are not in the situation, there is perfect understanding of it and a perfect handling of it, which may require physical action, which is not in conflict, may acquire emotions which are not in conflict, thinking which is not in conflict. So there is action without a problem. Isn't it astonishing how no matter what I touch, or whatever touches me during the day, it turns into a problem, a conflict, an emotional pain, a doubt. Haven't you ever questioned the necessity for meeting life that way? And I am not talking about easy situations. I'm talking about very difficult situations. Situations in which your own death may be involved. All your money is involved. Anyone can handle easy situations. We're not here for that. We want to pile on the work, not compromising. So have you ever questioned the necessity for getting angry when that incident came up today at which you got angry? Or depressed? Or you felt the compulsive need to blab? Or to laugh nervously? or to reduce the hostility of another person so he wouldn't be mad at you. Have you ever seen even the glimpse of the possibility of coming to a stop? So that there's no neurotic action, no nervous emotions, no flustered words, because you have come to a stop. Then, in that quietness, that silence, that inner silence, if it's necessary to get out and change the car tire, you do it without annoyance over it, without blaming the mechanic because he'd missed that nail on that level. He should have caught that second nail, but he didn't. But we get so much pleasure out of hating him, blaming him, finding someone to complain to. What a wonderful false pleasure it is, by the way, just to blame someone for anything we can think of, which in turn destroys this silence that we're talking about, out of which can come the only accurate and sensible action there can be. So that I don't foul everything up trying to straighten it out. Come to a stop internally so that we can reach this state. It's because we fear to. Because we sense just a very small glimpse, but it's enough to terrify the life out of us. We have a very small glimpse that coming to this stop that I'm talking about would put an end to everything which up till now I have called valuable, which is me. I have called me valuable. That trash that I go through all day long, the irritations, the foolishness, the bewilderment, that I call valuable, and that is what I refuse to give up. Can you think of anything more fantastic? This is what we've been doing all our lives. But now we're getting smart. Now I'll tell you something that is rightly assuring, rightly comforting. Maybe no one has ever told you this before. Nothing possibly bad, harmful can happen to you as a result of finding out what it means to slow down and come to an internal stop. Nothing bad can happen to you, which you now unconsciously assume, otherwise you would be there. You can't lose anything. Oh yes, your misery. You can lose that. Your nervousness, your fawning before other people. And if you hate yourself for fawning before other people, which you do, the hatred of yourself fawning is a mistake. Nothing bad can happen to you. To the contrary, everything good, which you cannot now see, because you can't see the bad either, really. Everything really good, authentically good, will happen to you and to me by doing this. So effective tonight, we're going to no longer be hypnotized by any event. I said anything. Don't make any exceptions. We're no longer going to be hypnotized and carried away by an external or internal event. Rather, we're going to understand what it means to really be so in control of ourselves, so in control, that when this automatic mechanical neurosis begins to take us over, we can catch it and stop it right now. So that there is no physical place, so that there's no hostile person, no deceiving person who can take us away. So there's no situation on earth that can steal me from me, or you from you. Because we have a new command of ourselves by making ourselves a new kind of human being right here in this world, on this earth. That new kind of human being responds and understands without effort every exterior situation where the physical body might happen to be, most certainly. And because this new person, this cosmic person, is not part of that screaming crowd, of that angry man or woman, of that situation which before we would call disappointing, or we would say that we've been cheated, because this new person has nothing in common with that lower level situation, we are free of it. Every time we react in a wrong way, it'd be a very good idea if you see yourself as simply being hypnotized by it, therefore its slave. If you don't like being a slave, then you will catch these situations and as best you can for now, make a refusal to go along with them, which you won't succeed in doing for a long while, but you're doing the right thing. You're beginning to battle rightly for yourself. So we have a major aim. We can only have one major aim, which is, from now on, starting right tonight, to walk into every situation, including the one we're in tonight and the one we'll be in a few minutes during the break, and at home, when you go home and you walk into the room and you live alone, what's your reaction? Have you ever watched it? What runs into your mind when you're in your home, whether you live alone or not? Feeling of loneliness, a feeling you're now going to have to listen to someone talk for a half hour before you can go to sleep. What's going through your mind? And then stop it. If I keep my major aim of waking up in mind every second that my mind doesn't have to be elsewhere, driving the car, whatever. If I have my major aim and never forget it, I can have 1,000, 5,000 minor aims if I want, and there is no problem. If I want to learn to play the violin, I want to learn to be a good cook, I want to improve my handwriting, who cares? Any aim is all right, because my major aim will not make me do foolish things, foolish aims. That's what I have to remember. If I seek first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, all other things will handle themselves effortlessly. And I'll say a couple more things and then stop. And we'll have open discussion. There is a part of each one of you, a very, very large, dominating, overwhelming part in some of you, that feels that you can never understand these things we've been talking about tonight. I'm telling you, there is a part of you that feels it cannot grasp it. Who is saying, I can't grasp it? I asked you a question. Who is saying, I can't understand this? You don't know. The part that is saying, I'll never get this, is an identified part, a self-centered part that loves inner drama, a part that loves its despair, a part that is mechanical, a part that is unconscious, a part which you do not as yet see or understand. When you have worked hard enough and long enough, you will see that this part that says, I'll never get it, that part is a hoaxer who has you. And when you see this hoaxer who has you, you will drop it and drop the plea, the cry, I'll never get this. And when you have dropped the anguished cry, I can't get this, you have it. Because you do not understand the depths of this, are standing in the way of your own understanding. You have no idea of how your repetitious complaints, I don't think I'll ever get it, or will I ever get it, or when will I ever get it? The very saying of it is the block, which does not mean you suppress it, but you see it and drop it, just like that. Having dropped the thought, really dropped it, not suppressed it or chased it away around the corner, really dropped it, and it is out of the way, that in the place of this thought is something else which is not mechanical thinking, and this something else is not you, but it is cosmic understanding, consciousness, seeing, which is very quiet, and which is total. Let's take a breath. We've been hypnotized by our own delusions, our own ignorance, our own laziness, our own love of being wrong long enough. Think of that phrase just for a minute. Our love of being wrong. So we're going to start changing it. We're not going to put up with it anymore. I'm not. I don't know about you. I'm not. Not for 1 second more. Regardless of the cost, period. Now you find out what it's going to cost you. All that phoniness, all that love of having domination over someone else, all that love of ambition to be someone, all that love of your resentment because you've never become anyone, all your love of feeling cheated, of being left out. Go ahead, keep it, and stay miserable. Or give it up and start to change things. All right, what would you like to talk about? Nice and loud and clear, please.
Would you discuss a little bit the difference between falsely running from a situation and psychologically walking out? Falsely running from and psychologically walking out.
You walk out of a situation right where you are when you see it. If it is necessary also to keep the walking out unified on all levels, you may then indeed walk out physically. You have to find your own examples of this. But probably the best one is any human relationship where you're sacrificing yourself to someone. You know it's a wrong relationship. You've already walked out on him or her or them if it's some stupid organization. You've already walked out on them when you begin to understand how wrong it is for you. Then you walk out physically. But I will tell you, if you walk out with an act of your own self-will, you'll just walk into the same situation again because you haven't understood it. You haven't understood that you can't afford this situation anymore. If you will walk out mentally, psychologically, walk out consciously, then you will know whether to walk out physically or not. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should stay right there because you'll understand. There are 10 million different situations and thousands of thoughts in your mind, which is why I have to do it for myself. You have to do it for yourself. We're getting the rules here. We're getting the principles. And I bring him into my situation, but very happily, the answer is a capital A. And it's mine, this man's, this lady's, and this boy's. There's only one answer. Which is why we can't possibly be in conflict in any way when we both have the one single answer. Have you ever walked out on someone or on a situation and felt the strange excitement it gave you out on a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Huh? Think back a few years. See? Remember the thrill it gave you? That was a false sense of self that was getting that thrill. And you even hope you hurt the other person as badly as possible because of what they did to you. That is what we call living in hypnosis. My hypnosis. And you notice, as long as we lived that way, that the pattern never changed. We switched from one wrong relationship to another, because when I am wrong, it has to be wrong out there. I bring my wrongness into it. Having hurt myself, I hurt you. I have no choice but to hurt you. And we call it marriage or romance or friendship. And it's mutual destruction. I am not going to destroy me anymore. Are you going to destroy yourself anymore? Through not understanding these things and through not living them, through not taking them out into your home. Everything can be changed. Everything. Because I can be changed. I become a new world. That new world includes everything exterior and everything interior. Which is why when I am right, who am I going to fight with? Who am I going to try to trick? No. I saw what was happening when I tricked myself. I saw the mistake I was making. I saw how it gave me nightmares and what we call a guilty conscience. I'm not going to do it anymore. No, sir. No, ma'am. Do you want to go with me? We'll work together. Put an end to the insanity. Isn't that a good word, insanity? That's what it is. That's what it amounts to. The horror, how about horror? The horror story of our lives. No more. And when I get mad, and I get scared, and I accuse someone, I'm not going to let that hypnotize me by making me feel like I'm an awful person. Because if I feel like an awful person, that's one step from just being a sinner whom God will forgive in heaven. So my sickness remains. I'll tell you, in this group, we're not going to be fooled by anything anymore that's happening up there all day long. I'm not going to make the mistake anymore of slandering myself. I wouldn't let you slander me. I'd get mad if you slander me, but I can do it to myself all day long. But that's all right, because I'm feeding myself a false reward of the excitement of slandering myself, of hating myself. Just stop it. Just stop it. tell you, we're going to go a long, long ways. Nothing is going to stop us. Time will come when you catch yourself making a mistake of some kind, anything, an internal one, not doing what you should have done, doing something you shouldn't have done. And you'll catch yourself right in the middle of the mistake. And at that minute, second, a whole new light will come into your mind, and you will clearly understand what you have to do all day long. The minute you get up till you go to bed, that it will become clearer to you what you have to do, which is standing aside and watching yourself operate, talk, emotion-wise, physically, walk physically. You'll understand that your major aim is to watch this without interpretation. Because the minute you interpret it, you have brought your conditioning into it. And have strengthened this false, stupid self that does go around making all these mistakes. See, the secret is for me, for you, to cut yourself off from your habitual self, so that there is something else there that is not the self operating. Then all the necessary talking, thinking, acting, responding goes on without the interference of our conditioning, our self-condemnation, our self-flattery, whatever it might be. Without the interference of that, because it has died, or is dying. Try to catch some negative feature, character trait that you repeat over and over and over. Try to see it. The other day, I reminded one of you in this room, and this person will know to whom I'm referring, of a certain mechanical phrase that this person was using constantly and unconsciously. So this person was told about it, became aware of it, and broke it. Just a small thing, but that's what our whole life is made up, small mechanical movements. Try to find some place where you always do the same thing in the same circumstance, and try to catch it and make an effort to consciously interrupt it, to not do it, which produces the necessary shock for you to really see it and to weaken the mechanical repetition, slowing it down until it stops altogether. Do any of you know anyone, I'm not talking about anyone in this group, anyone in this room, I'll repeat a question I asked a while back. We'll change the subject a little bit. Do any of you know someone who can help you find yourself? May I see your hand if you know someone? I have no doubt that yours are authentic. So where are you going to go? Did you want to comment, Lorraine? Okay, all right. Okay. There's no way we can see presently. I know, I don't assume, I don't think that this young man here, and this lady here, and this boy, and this man, and this lady, I know as a fact, just like that is a fact, that these answers are in you, all blocked up, all covered up. You don't even think that yet. But it's a fact. It's very hard to take people away from their, quote marks, comforting sources of answers, isn't it? Not necessarily a philosophical or religious teaching, but their excitements, or their hobbies, or their clubs, or their routine days. The last thing any human being wants to do is to catch himself without something to think about or to do. That would be the most horrifying event for most people, to suddenly find themselves without something, I'll confine it to thinking about, without something to think about. And if you are listening very carefully, you will see why it's so terrifying to not have anything to think about. That's the absence of you, of what you have called you, and that's the fear of death. The fear of coming to an end. And it's incredible. We fear the end of not me, but an illusion, a bundle of experiences and memories which I have called me. When I see that, it becomes easy to let go. Let's start at the very, very beginning, just as if you have never been to a class like this, have never heard these things before. Those of you listening to this tape can put yourself in the same position of not knowing anything about your own life, which you do not know, by the way. You know very little about yourselves. Because if we knew more, our lives wouldn't unfold the way they do, with so much conflict and uncertainty, and such an anxious striving to get answers and to find people who can give us the answers, who will then give you wrong answers. So what is the requirement of being a different kind of a person? Very, very simple and very, very complex. First of all, quite plainly, I must want to change inwardly. All our lives we've been trying to change the outer world, changing the laws, changing the groups we belong to, changing human relations, changing residence, changing the car, changing our employment. Our whole day has been spent in trying to change something outwardly that we hoped would make us feel better inwardly. And the thrill we did indeed receive from this exterior change, even a good dinner, nice dinner. That's our reward. The world has treated me cruelly, but I'll have a good dinner. That will be nice to me. That's right. But it hasn't worked, because these are all on the level of change themselves, and therefore my feelings toward them must change. So trying to change anything out there, change the way someone treats me, for example, hasn't done a thing for me. So I have to get to the point where I'm in despair over trying to change something out there, because I know it isn't going to work. And when I see that it isn't, you don't see it. Because you're still trying to change things out there, hoping it'll produce a favorable change in yourself, which it hasn't. When the horror, which we discussed last night, of seeing that nothing out there getting the raise, causing trouble to other people, which gives me a thrill, the whole business, can't do a thing about changing the kind of a person I am. When I see it, I am in great fear. If you have not come to the point where you're in great fear, overseeing the impossibility of attaining anything in your usual way, then you have that experience to meet as yet. Because as long as there is hope in changing through outer changes, changing me through outer changes, I will also, without realizing it, without seeing it at all, be covering up my fear. So the destruction, the absolute destruction of all hope, of all eagerness, of all excitement, the destruction of all these things must come to me. Which again, as I said, will make me very frightened. Because now, for the first time in my life, I'm faced with a situation in which I have no answer. Oh, life was beautiful before. You know why? Because I could go to that group meeting every week and they gave me answers. I could have my hobby of working in my garden and telling my neighbors about my new vegetable garden. That was an answer. That kept me busy. I could subscribe to political magazines and attend political meetings and social cause meetings. That was an answer. I had no problems then because I had all the answers, didn't I? And I could argue with you and fight with you, stand up for my answers. I'm so secure because when I walk in the door of the political meeting or the religious meeting, there was good old Tom and Helen and Bill, and we shook hands, we sat down, and life was very comfortable. Except when I put the key in the lock of my car and was driving home either alone or with my wife or 10 other people, the very very faint whispering of the horror came into my ear. The whispering, you've had it, but you haven't heard it. The whispering that the whole evening was a fraud from beginning to end. Which is so fearful, I immediately reach for a cigarette or for a blab. I turn to you and blab. Wasn't he a wonderful speaker? He uses such amusing anecdotes. He brings the meeting alive. Or I go into an imagination about something else. Now I'm bored with politics. Now I think about girls for a while. Anything to prevent me from shifting from one way of thinking to this totally new way of thinking, which eventually, I'm going to have the courage to face if I'm ever going to stop suffering from myself. You understand, do you not, that we suffer only from ourselves and not from the other person? If when I put the key in the car and start driving home, after that exciting evening, whatever it might be, ballroom dancing, waltzing around, whatever it was, watching television at home and turning it off, if I notice the sudden shift in my mind at the moment I shut it off or turn the key in the car, I have a chance. This is my golden opportunity to end the horror story of my own life. Because for the first time, I will see the way I really am, instead of this phony actor smiling and shaking hands with everyone, laughing, telling jokes, going through the mechanical motions of having a good time. Have any of you ever had a good time mechanically and noticed it afterward? Have you? This is what we're trying to see. All right. If I hear this whispering and pay attention to it, this can be the very, very small little turning point. Turning point. I've been going in this direction all my life, a mad machine, lying, horrified, hypnotized, mad. This could be the jolt, and it has to be a jolt that turns me in this direction. Then I could take the next step, which is to make contact in one way or another with the teachings which we're getting in this group and which exist in certain classic books, exist in certain modern books, exist in certain human beings, some from the past, some who live today. But I could begin with a lot of stumbling and errors to come in contact with a person or a teaching who is on the other side of this madness and who can therefore explain the whole business to me, because I'm so bewildered, because I've decided to leave the comfort of gathering together with other lying people and cast myself adrift, having no idea of where I'm going. But I know for sure, do I not, that I can't take it anymore. But the decision I make is not one in favor of getting drunk every night or chasing women every night. or getting involved in some mad scheme to save the world when I can't even save myself. But the decision is made to see whether I can begin to understand what it means to be all by myself. Right in the middle of all the necessary social activities where I have to go to work and I have to attend a certain business meeting, I'm compelled to do so for certain reasons, I can begin to suspect and investigate the fact that I can detach myself both externally and internally from this unconscious, hypnotized mind, detach myself from it a little bit, and be all alone without answers, without comforting friends, without anyone who makes me feel secure in any way at all, without Mama and Papa and authorities. I can begin to be consciously afraid, which will be my state when I begin to stand all alone. Then, depending on my earnestness, I will either come to a group like this quite mechanically and sit here mechanically for 2 or 3 years, more or less, one meeting and then go away, or 5 meetings, 5 years and not get anything. Or I can make the next decision, which is simply this. Having caught a glimpse that there is a way to not be who I have always been, I can make the decision to increase the pressure on myself to get more frightened, more terrified, more alone, so that I can finally break through to the other side. Far, far more is required of you and of me than we can possibly imagine. In fact, our imagination will tell us that if you just follow 1, 2, 3 steps, you'll have it made. You can follow 1, 2, 3 steps and live in the imagination of being a new kind of a person, of being a Christian, for example, or being a 7th degree Buddhist monk, and have all kind of diplomas and degrees that seem to affirm what you have said about yourself. Or I can make the decision to break through. Which means by thinking in a different way, by reacting in a different way, I will destroy the old and have the new. If there had been new people here this morning, I would have repeated something I've told some of you last week or so, but I'm going to say it now for your benefit. And I may repeat it tomorrow. I may repeat it a dozen times, because this will be the only opportunity new people have to get something, to change themselves. Maybe tomorrow if new people come, or relatively new people. But now I will say it to you in a different way with a little different motive. Listen to this and see how you respond to it. With this group, with these meetings, 3 times a week now, each of you here in this room has this opportunity to break through to the other side. And don't ask what it is. You will know when you get there. You have an opportunity to break through to the other side. With this group, by coming here, by listening, working, absorbing, with a willingness to be afraid and know that you're afraid instead of covering up as we've been doing all our lives. With it, an opportunity. Without this, no opportunity practically at all. No opportunity. Because we just go out, or a new person coming here for the first time would just go out into the world and go back the way they always were. Now, can you conceive the reaction of a person coming here for the first time to what I just said? All kind of things go through their mind. I don't see an awful lot more to talk about this morning. I see a great need for watching what is going on inside of me this moment, to put the responsibility where it has to be, within my own mind, my own feelings, without leaning on anyone, including the man who's talking to you now, or the book you're going to read later on. Not that knowledge is wrong. We must have knowledge. That's an absolute necessity. That's why we have these meetings. But the knowledge you gain from a meeting or from a book is in you too. Which is why when you read a book or hear a talk and respond rightly to it, something in you affirms the rightness of what you hear. And you know it's right because it is from yourself, and you're not merely agreeing with the speaker or with the book because it gives you a certain pleasure. Do you understand how utterly stern this has to be? Not cruel. Comfort is cruel. Sentimental Christianity is cruel. My degree of progress in understanding these things be to the degree that I refuse to put up with nonsense from my own mind, from my own behavior. This is what is known as being stern with yourself. For example, if you're in an uncomfortable position, maybe someone, 2 or 3 people are watching you, and they know, you know that they're watching you. For example, you walk across the room in some way where everyone is faced toward you, and you have to make the long march from there to the back. And you know what? Even while they're talking, they're out of the corner of their eyes. They're looking at you, seeing how old you are, watching the expression on your face, watching the gait of your walk even. They're perceiving whether you walk gracefully or clumsily or whatever. All this is going on in your mind, whether you're aware of it or not. You know you're being observed. And what is your reaction to that? How stern can you be to your own response of being aware of other people watching you, maybe critically, or maybe you're in vanity, maybe you're nice looking, maybe you're good looking, you have a nice figure, you have a pretty new dress on, new suit on, whatever. Can you be totally stern with yourself, and at the same time you are aware of them watching you? You rise up in sternness to this tyrannical part of you that is so egotistically self-centered that it worries and wonders about what they're thinking about you and what kind of a action you got from them in the 3 seconds it took you to walk from there to there. See, you don't even know in most cases that you are thinking about them thinking about you. There's a very negative kind of self-consciousness, which is simply nothing more than self-centeredness, than nervousness. I will ask you, and then we'll stop. I will ask you, why don't you just give it up? Why do you care what other people think of you? Why do you care? You wouldn't care if you were natural within yourself. But because we're unnatural and playing these roles, see, it's very easy for me to con you or you to con me into making me believe we're superior to what we really are when we're, for example, in a casual conversation. Because I have mastered the art, and so have you, of talking cleverly, dynamically, to appear to be whatever I want you to believe I am. And that's easy because we're both playing the game. But the minute I walk across the room, I have nothing to say. I can't keep the stage performance going. It's one-sided. You're looking at me, and I'm without defense. Tremendous. Don't make a remark to distract their attention of looking at you critically when you walk across the room. It's almost childish, but I will tell you, bear the horrible pain of them looking at you critically. Bear it consciously and watch how it fades so that you're no longer the center of your own attention anymore. It is the little thing. You think this is the little thing? Of course it is. It is the little work projects like this that gradually detach ourselves from ourselves so that we're no longer thinking about what other people think about us or what we think about ourselves, but are free from the total reactions of this kind and walk across the room in awareness but in freedom. Now apply that to where you work or at home and watch what happens. Let's take a break. Yeah, we're just going to talk now for a while. Larry, will you repeat the example you gave me of the Safeway business and as an example of what we're trying to get rid of? Do you remember?
All right. Yes, I speak of fearful thought. Right? Is this?
Yeah, right.
Fearful thought. Same thing as not being one whole person. Same thing as being a divided person from mind and body. Simply like Vernon says, not at the Safeway store, but right now, to be aware of my voice, of my body, of you, of Vernon, instead of when I leave this class Monday morning, I walk to the post office and I look for Vernon Howard. I have nothing to give or to receive from him, I owe him $5, he owes me a buck. No. But my mind splits from my body, and I will say, is it time for Vernon? I don't wear a watch. Is it time for Vernon to drive up and get his mail? Where is he? Is he parked? What color car has he got? And stumble over the curb. I'm a divided, split person trying to practice what is being told right now. But the trying puts my own block in my own way. The trying splits me.
You know, Boulder, yes, yeah. Boulder City is a small town, and there's only one post office and a couple groceries, and all us people here, believe me, you're bound to bump into each other every once in a while. Use it. You see someone coming, instead of dodging around the corner. You know why you're uncomfortable? You know why? You don't know how to behave. Yeah, you know, well, you're in a way you're saying, well, we have really nothing to talk about, but you can't just walk. I can't walk right by Dick on the main street and not say hello.
I know you.
And you both look. Have you ever noticed you look at each other, hoping that the other one will reduce your anxiety? See, we're getting home now. This is what we're talking about. Work on the situation. Okay, Mark has got something here.
About a week ago, I was, from our house, we live down near Vernon. I was riding my bicycle up the hill near our house, and I stopped at the stop sign. I looked back, and I saw a little green Volkswagen coming up, exactly like Vernon, except the license plate. And I turned around, and I thought, oh, here comes Vernon. Am I doing things right? and I started to wave, and there was a lady in the car.
Yeah, I'll put you all at ease. There's another car just like mine up in the Lakeview section, so be careful who you wave at. Good heavens. To make the right impression is the first big thought in our mind, right? I hope I can come out of this at least 50-50. When you give a talk, when you sit down, what are the thoughts that go through your mind? Well, at least I broke even. I didn't make it any worse than it was. Or maybe you brag a little. Boy, I really hit him with that one. Who is it, Robert Burns? If we could see ourselves standing up here, you know, we're all watching whoever's talking up here and seeing the little nervousnesses and things like that. It's very interesting, isn't it, how we're all different. Some of you become the preacher. You're really laying it on to us. Others are just nervously rambling. Others are hoping to get out of there quick. Others are saying, uh-oh, they've heard this 1,000 times, but I can't think of anything else to say. Another one of you will tell a joke that falls flat. All this is good work. We're not afraid of it. We're not afraid of being foolish up there. Or are you? Larry?
To sit in a room by myself and listen to a tape, one of these class tapes from a year and a half back, and remember before, right after the class, when I dashed up and bought the tape and carried it home to hear myself. To hear myself. That's what I bought it for. I didn't want to hear if I wanted to hear what he had to say, I'd listen more intensely in class, all right? But to see myself, knowing my voice is coming up on a joke, I think of this, right? Thanks, Rudy. And watch my own self, sitting by myself, start saying, oh, how stupid that was. There's nobody else in the room when I'm listening to it. But then listen to it now, a year later, and impartially, that's a tape, that's a piece of thing playing. Yes, I pulled a boo-boo, I was going to impress someone, I thought. But see it differently now as
Yeah, you can detach yourself somewhat, Larry, from it. See, calling yourself stupid is wrong, is it not? Who will explain to me why it's wrong to call yourself stupid, even if you were, and you were?
No, to call yourself stupid is a viewpoint.
Sure.
And your viewpoints are what we're trying to get rid of.
Well, you would swing off to the other side and think
Right.
yourself good or something else.
Right.
I have to have the courage of not calling myself stupid. I
Sit-
have to have the courage of not calling
Correct.
myself
Quite
stupid.
correct. Why does it take courage? Because it takes courage to die. You're dying when you refuse to identify yourself as stupid. That's getting rid of it, isn't it? False personality.
I have the opposite vanity. I've heard myself on tape before, and I'm terrible. I wouldn't even listen to the one that Ted brought because I knew how it sounded. It took me quite a while before I listened to that tape. So it's vanity. You know,
Well,
in
of
a
course it
different
is.
way.
Resistance to it is vanity. Of course it is. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice, a nice relief, not to have something to say? Even sitting here discussing this and we fall into silence because we're not going to force a conversation just to keep it going. Or all alone by yourself. Isn't it nice to have nothing to say to yourself or to the exterior world, depending on which one you're talking to at the minute, whether you're talking to yourself or that imaginary person who hurt your feelings? Isn't it nice to have nothing to say? Just to be silent? Isn't that a different state than we ordinarily have? That is another version of what we talked about last night, of coming to a stop within ourselves. So that you're quite aware of everything, inside and out, without a lot of racket going on.
I recently read, I think it was in Search for Miraculous, that to remember our nothingness is to remember ourselves. Could you elaborate on that a little
Yeah,
bit, or
yeah.
explain what that might
All right.
mean?
We first of all start with it. We have all kind of self-descriptions, self-labels. I'm a success, I'm a failure, I'm young, I'm old, I'm good-looking, I'm not good-looking, I'm attractive, I'm unattractive, the whole business. We have all these labels, right? What would the nothingness be but to have no labels at all? Now, when I have no labels, no descriptions at all, which, by the way, my descriptions are always unconscious. If I was conscious of them, I would be able to drop them, take the next step and drop them, but I don't see it. They're always unconscious. This is why every one of us in this room, the depths of our self-descriptions has to be dug into every day, every second. The slightest little thing can be a self-description. Walking across the room. Self-centered. All right. When I understand what it means to stop thought, I will also understand what it means to stop the self-description. Then where am I? Do I exist? Do I exist when I don't call myself something? How can I exist? So I understand what it means to stop thought, which means I stop self-label. I'm terrible, I'm wonderful. All the opposites that Al mentioned. All the opposites. Then there is a nothingness there. All right. Again, do I cease to exist as a human being? What happens to me? What happens to me when I am nothing? You have to find out. And what will happen is nothing bad. We said that last night. Nothing bad can possibly happen to you. Everything good can happen. Why don't you find out what it means to be absolutely nothing? Now I'll give you a little clue that will help you distinguish. Life, on one level, can be extremely personal. extremely personal. That level being the level of everyday life, concerned with my physical body. You want sex, because there's something in you that desires sex, then you have sex. That's a very personal thing happening. It's not happening to someone else out there as far as you're concerned. This is very personal. You like to plant your own vegetable garden, potatoes and tomatoes. That happens to be your inclination. Your neighbor doesn't like it. He likes to work on his car. You like to plant a vegetable garden. That's a very personal inclination. No problem, nothing there. Go ahead. Why don't you follow your natural inclinations that are not conditioned so that there's no problem involved in it, and just live freely as you like? So that's very personal, isn't it? Very personal, because we have a physical body, among other things. We have a home that we have to decorate the way we want. Be as personal as you want. At the same time, on another level, the much higher level, or a different level if you prefer, and a different level, completely impersonal, because you know there is no person there. There is a nothingness there. Can you see the two levels? Can you get your two levels and work with them at the same time without getting confused about it? We said before, it's when I want to brag to you about my beautiful 10-inch tomatoes that the problem comes into it. But if I can grow the tomatoes simply because I enjoy it, it's fun. And it's not wrong to say I'll have tomatoes on my table tonight instead of paying 90 cents a pound for them at the grocery market. That's fine. That's great. When I can keep these levels separate and get each one in its right place, where is the problem? No problem. This is very difficult to do, at the start at least. Try to get your levels separate, then you'll have no problem with it at all. And don't you apologize for your natural inclinations, whatever they might be. Maybe you like to play the guitar. I don't know what you like to do. You know. You like to read. This, by the way, getting your levels separate will do an astonishing thing to drop the chains, which we've talked about before, which will be the end of false duties toward the world and toward individuals, where you're no longer compelled against your own true judgment to do things for other people because you've been conditioned that this is the moral thing to do. This is the right thing to do. You hate doing it, but you compel yourself to do it because God is watching your behavior and He's writing down. He brought candy to the sick people in the hospital. That's a score in favor of Him. Well, that'll cancel out that cruelty I committed 10 years ago. All this is utter slavery. Don't try to be good. It never works. Some of you know this by experience, don't you? Trying. He told us this once in one of his talks. After seeing how horrible he was, he tried to be good, doing things, whatever it was, going to church, whatever it was, and resenting every minute of it.